Today's episode is a masterclass on business. So, my guest is Bryan Clayton, and he started mowing lawns in high school and ended up selling that company for millions. You guys, we're talking about mowing lawns. So, after he sells that company, he then starts an app called GreenPal, which is like the Uber for landscaping. And what I love about this episode is he talks about the grind and hustle that it took to build a company from the ground up. So enjoy this episode and be sure to share it with a friend. All right, Bryan Clayton, welcome to the podcast.
Sarah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so your story is pretty wild because you built your first company, you sold it for seven figures, and then a short time after you started another company that is having great success. So this feels like the American dream, but like times two. So let's start with the first company and just kind of talk me through what that was and how you scaled it.
Yeah, my first business was a lawn mowing business, and a lot of people get their start in business ownership cutting grass, and that was me. But I just kind of stuck with it. I just I figured, okay, I'm going to use lawn mowing to pay my way through college and not have to take on student loan debt. And then when I graduated college, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to take a pay cut if I go get a job because I'm doing pretty good mowing yards. Let's see how far I can take this. And then I actually used what I learned in business school and applied it to my little lawn mowing business and ended up growing that into a real company. Got to about 150 employees, eventually around $10 million a year in sales. And then it was acquired by a national company that operates these types of landscaping companies all over the country. And I learned a lot about how to build a business and how to do it the right way and the wrong way, and how to lead teams and how to build processes, and applied that to my second company, which is called GreenPal. And GreenPal is like the Uber for lawn mowing. So I took everything I learned from the blue collar side of the industry, and then taught myself how to code and how to build software, and then built a platform that makes the whole lawn mowing industry run like Uber does. And now Uber is, I guess you could say, a 10-year overnight success.
I love
It's
that we use Uber as a verb now and everyone knows what that means.
Yeah, it's a great way to, explain what it is, what you do. Yeah, the
Right.
Airbnb for this or the Uber for that. You understand instantly what it does. And yeah, and so GreenPal, anywhere in the country, you need to get a lawn mowing, you just download GreenPal and someone will do it for you.
Gosh, that's so cool. Okay, so going back to your first company, you go to college, then you realize you were making more money doing the lawn mowing business. How do you like what's your next step there? You like, I'm hiring people, or how did you start to grow that where then you had 150 employees?
Yeah, so, going to school at night and mowing yards during the day, I had 3 full-time employees by the time I graduated college, and so I had already kind of figured out the simple, I guess you could say, unit economics of a service-based business, which is basically you're just selling labor hours. So I
Mhm.
knew that if there were 3 of us in a truck and we were working 10 hours a day, that was 30 labor hours that I was selling. And I had to figure out a way to charge clients enough by the hour to recover all of my expenses and make a little bit of a profit. And that took me, I guess, the first 5 years of business to figure out. And I had to learn that you can't just throw bodies at a problem. Meaning, if you got more work than you can handle, it doesn't mean you can just hire as many people as you want. And I made that mistake, I guess, in year 3 or 4, when Monday came along and it was time to make payroll, and I didn't have enough money in the bank to pay all of my people. And so you learn all of these things every little step of the way in any business, but even a lawn mowing business, you learn things like basic accounting and basic business economics, and if you're making money or if you're losing money, and why that's important to know. And so I'd already kind of gotten to first base when I graduated business school. At that point, it was now time to put together a business plan and put together a spreadsheet with a projection of, okay, if I can grow this to 10 people and 3 crews going out every day, so I could run 1 crew and then my other 2 employees could run the second and third crew. What would that look like? How much sales could we generate? And how much money could this little business make? And that seemed doable to me. And got that done in a few years, and then every year just layered it on another couple more trucks and a couple more group of employees, and before I knew it, had over 100 people and 90 of those crews going out every day to different parts of Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm from, and it became a pretty good size operation by the time it was acquired.
Wow. So as you're building this business, at what point are you starting to build it with the mindset of selling it?
Well, ideally, you do that day one. You work a proactive plan. There's a really good book about this called "Built to Sell," where the author kind of goes through that process. I did none of that. I had built the as a lifestyle business. I really thought that I was gonna run that company for the next 20 years, and I really felt like it was just gonna be a business that I was gonna keep in the family and maybe hand off to my kids one day. And then something weird happened, I guess around year 12 or 13, that I got really complacent with the personal growth that I was getting out of the business. A weird thing happens when you're running a company. You are evolving into a whole new person every year or two because you're getting challenged by all of these new things that you've never done before, and so you're growing and you're evolving and you're expanding and learning new things, and that's fulfilling in a way that you don't really understand or realize it when it's happening. Well, that kind of plateaued, and I guess I had gone like 2 years sideways from a personal development standpoint, and I didn't like that. Like, it just didn't feel good, and so I thought, "Man, I need to do something else. I wanna do something else." I
Like
maybe
something
I
to challenge yourself? Was that what you were looking for?
Yeah, it's not like I really wanted to go out and work hard on something else, but I just wanted to another journey, another set of challenges, different challenges, and I thought, I think it would be fun to run a tech company, well, maybe one day. And so I thought, well, in order to even think about pursuing that, I have to create the space for it. And there's no way I could run one company and start another. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna explore the idea of getting this business acquired. And from the moment I had that thought in my head to the day we got the deal done was like over 2 years. There was a lot of reverse engineering that had to go into the business, and almost taking the business down to the studs and then rebuilding it from the inside out to build it in such a way that it could be acquired by a nine-figure business. It was like a nine-figure business acquiring an eight-figure business, and to be able to get a deal like that done, there's a lot of things that you have to have in place, like gap accounting and probably a different structure in the business in terms of your org chart than you currently have in place, and then really well documented processes on how you sell and how you manage and how you deal with all of the things that go on inside of the business, and so that took 2 years to really get right. And uh and and by the time I got done with all of that, I almost fell in love with it again. It was a weird thing. It was very
That's
strange.
gotta be hard to, you
Yeah,
build, you put so much of your life in and you think it's gonna be something that stays in the family. And then, if you
yeah,
hit a certain milestone, you're like, okay, we can double this next year. Let's keep growing it. So
totally.
yeah, so that's so interesting that you recognize that there was, cognitively like something missing. And, something else that I think about often and a transition, that I experienced going into this podcast was understanding what I wanted my lifestyle to look like, which meant my business couldn't be something where I had to be in person in a certain geographic area. I
Yeah,
need to have the ability to travel. So,
yeah.
is that something that you wanted where you didn't have to necessarily be the day to day?
Um, that is ultimately where I ended up. Now fast forward, 10 years later, I do travel 11 months out of the year running GreenPal. And that's a nice byproduct of running a tech company. But that wasn't the reason why I started a tech business. First off, running my landscaping company, you were I mean, you could not get away for longer than 4 days at a time. I mean, you really had to be there wrangling that business 6, 7 days a week, 51 and a half weeks out of the year. It's kinda like anybody that owns a restaurant, will tell you, like, they literally, like, sleep in the kitchen. That's how a landscaping business is, or a construction company. Those types of businesses are very much hands-on, and that's how that company was. And so the idea of traveling and the idea of taking a vacation longer than 3 days was a totally foreign concept to me. I had never left the country. It was just not something, it was just not a thought that inhabited me. So that wasn't the reason I started GreenPal. I started GreenPal because I saw what Uber was doing. I saw that Uber was connecting buyers and sellers around ride sharing from a mobile app. And this was in 2014, 2015. And I thought that it needs to exist for this humble little industry that I know, landscaping maintenance. And somebody's going to build that. Why can't it be me that builds that? And so that was the reason I started it. And the other reason I started a tech business was because with my landscaping company, I could service and have thousands of customers, and touch thousands of different, there was 150 people there that worked there, and every one of them probably had 4 or 5 dependents. And so it's like, okay, you've got like 500 or 600 people that depend on this business. And that gave me real value as a founder. That gave me that made it like serious, like what I was doing. And so the next company, I wanted to be able to go beyond that. I wanted to scale to something that could touch hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions of people. And that was the reason why I wanted to build a tech company. And so with GreenPal, we have 300,000 people using this thing every week for lawn mowing, and there's 40,000 lawn care services that use it to run their business. And so that's important to me. It's important that I really try to grow the platform and run it to the best of my abilities, because these people depend on that technology. And so that's why I wanted to start a tech company, was because you can scale more and touch more people.
That's a huge responsibility when you know that many people are depending on, the decisions that you're making in your business every day.
Totally.
So, okay, so you go into tech, you figure out how to code, you start building this app. Did you have mentors along the way, or how did you go about, because while it's in the same general area of like landscaping, it's a very different type of company. So, how did you learn how to successfully grow a company that's in tech?
It's a really good question. And it was one that I kind of beat my head against the wall, because everybody tells you, oh, you got to go out and find mentors, and you got to network, and you need to join communities of people doing similar things. And I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. And so Nashville is not really well known for all of its consumer mobile app tech successes. So there wasn't
Mhm.
a whole lot of other groups of founders doing what it is we were doing. So at a local level, that was a pretty pretty shallow pool. And then from the mentorship standpoint, there's a lot of successful businesses in Nashville, but they're in industries that are completely unrelated to what I was working in. Music and healthcare and things like that. So that really was out of reach. So I had to get mentorship, but I had to get mentorship asynchronously. And what I mean by that is I had to go out and find really smart people that were doing things that I was trying to do, and then learn from them asynchronously in terms of every spoken word that they've ever put out on the open web, every interview that they've ever done, every podcast they've ever done, every blog post they've ever written. And I did that for probably about two dozen different people. The founder of Uber, Travis Kalanick, was one. The founder of Airbnb, Brian Chesky, was another. And then not only the CEOs and founders of these companies, but also like practitioners within those companies that were doing their growth marketing, or doing their product design, or that were doing their data science. Those people also were blogging and putting out content on YouTube even 10 years ago. And so I could learn from these people, whom I've never met, but I could get mentorship from them in a one-way direction. And that's how I did it. That's how I went from blue collar grass cutting founder to tech entrepreneur, managing engineers and managing developers and website designers and content creators and search engine optimization analysts and things of that sort. So it was a slow process, took 3 to 5 years to make that transition, but through YouTube University and through like the world of podcasts, I was able to learn and asynchronously from these people who were doing what it is I was wanting to do.
I love that because one time I had somebody ask me like, "Oh, who are your mentors?" And I'm like, I don't really have anyone in my immediate life that I talk to about this." And she was like, "You don't need to know them. You like it could be anybody and you can just, follow them and listen to their podcasts and such. And there's so much free education out there that
Right.
it's incredible like how much people are willing to share. And so if you just put your intention into following somebody that's doing what you want to do, they give away so much of their information for free. It's just up to you to then actually apply it.
Absolutely, and honestly, you can probably get even better advice that way than from somebody who just has the bandwidth to sit down with you one-on-one and let you pick their brain. Honestly, that person who has that time probably isn't operating at the same level as somebody who is, uh, you know, doing a podcast interview or is on stage somewhere at some conference, who's sharing their thoughts, sharing their experience. You can probably learn more from that person from in a one-way asynchronous manner rather than grabbing a coffee with somebody who has the time to sit down with you and talk to you about something. It's just a
So
it,
true.
I mean, it's just you're probably going to learn more through the person that you don't even know than the person who has time to meet with you.
Right. And one thing I love doing recently is like I'll go back and reread books now or listen to podcasts again because as I continue to grow, once you can read those again with a different mindset or you're in a different space,
It's a
you
totally
can
different
think
book.
of things in like a completely different
Yeah.
way. So like you can, continue to learn from the same material.
Oh, absolutely. It's a totally different book. It's funny. There's a few books like that for me. One is one of my favorite books about personal development and really business and life is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I've read that book
Hmm.
maybe 5 or 6 times, and every time I read it, it's a whole new book. And it's because
Yes.
I've gone through this kind of challenging thing in business or in my personal life or whatever, and it's like I am now a different person. So the material is just different. And so you're right. You don't even have to find the next new thing. A lot of times you can revisit the classics, if you will, and then you'll learn something new from the same material over again. It's a weird thing.
It's so true. I love doing that. So for you, you mentioned that you wanted to challenge yourself and go into a different type of business, for some personal growth and challenges. So have you found that going into this tech company? And like what are some of those things that you found almost about like yourself and who you are, through that process?
Yeah, it really is like you do evolve as a whole new person every year, and you kind of have to because you're growing alongside the business. When we have several 100,000 people using it now, but when we started, it was a couple dozen, and so the person you are trying to hustle up 100 people to use this new app is a very different person than when you're trying to get to 1 million people. And so you are growing and you are evolving, and that's for me has reignited like a whole new fulfilling aspect of running a business that I didn't have at the very end of my last company. And so yeah, it's like what I've learned is that you don't have to have a title to do these things. Like I never had the title of software developer. I never had the title of engineer or data scientist or growth hacker or or podcaster or content writer. But you can get 80/20 good at any of these things. In fact, you kind of need to and get like dangerously good at them and then hire people who are really good at them to help you execute at a higher level. And that's what I have found is like you have to be good at about a dozen different things. You have to be and you have to be and it helps to be a generalist and it helps to be willing to learn like the 20% that gives you the 80% of the value for
Hmm.
about 12 different things. And
Right.
things
And
that I never thought I'd be doing, like poring over like data models and things like that. In my last company, I was worried about, dealing with mechanics that worked on lawnmowers and big diesel trucks. And now I'm talking to data scientists about building predictive models about how to make our platform run smoother. And so it's a funny thing.
Right. So you mentioned something that I want to dive a little deeper on. You were talking about how in the beginning you had dozens of users. So, from a mindset perspective, you just sold a successful company. There's got to be like some internal pressure on like, okay, I did this once. We're doing another company. Like there's some pressure
It
to
was
be
really
successful
tough.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like mentally, what was that like?
Yeah, that was a shocker that nobody can prepare you for until you kinda go through it. So my first landscaping business was doing $10 million a year in sales, and it wasn't like I conquered the world or anything, but it was a good profitable small business, and then sold that, and then now I start this app that allows you to hire a lawn mowing service at the touch of a button, and we called
Mhm.
it GreenPal. And now, I build this app, and I think, okay, now the users are going to start flooding in, and it was like, if you build it, if you build it, they will not come, and and so
Yeah.
now I'm having to hustle up people to use my crappy app for a $25 lawn mowing and begging them to do it, begging friends and family to use it, begging, acquaintances to use this thing because I needed 100 people to use it for their lawn mowing services so I could get some feedback and some data to figure out if we were on the right path or not. So, yeah, that was
Hmm.
really humbling, but it was kind of probably what I needed at the time. It was all good and got through that and we got to our first 100 users using the app and then we eventually got to 500 and then got to 1,000 and then once we got to 10,000 people using it for lawn mowing every week, we then started making a little bit of money and then it got to be more like a real business again.
Okay. Yeah. So did you find that like getting those first 100 users was the hardest part?
Excruciating, really tough. Everything from uh sitting at a Starbucks with a sign that said you know, try my app, get a free
Please
coffee.
help.
Yeah, literally. Literally. Use my app and I'll buy you a free coffee. Did that, picked up like 5, 10 users in a day. That way we passed out flyers.
These
We
are great grassroots. I love
Yeah,
that you're sharing these because
passed out
people
flyers.
think that like you build it and they just come and
No, no,
people should
no.
be using it. Like, yeah. So tell me some of those like early things that you did. So
Very
buying
much.
people coffee.
Very much hand-to-hand combat. We sat at the mall, at a kiosk, like, for every Saturday for, like 3 months, um, that was twofold. We needed people to use it, but we also wanted the people to, like, try it while we were watching them. Like, I wanted people to sign up and get quotes while I watched them do it as a usability kinda thing. So that was kind of twofold, and then yeah, it was a lot of door hangers. We passed out probably 100,000 door hangers all over Nashville, Tennessee that first year. I got bit by a dog like twice, and
Okay.
like that's no joke. We realized that wasn't a scalable user acquisition strategy, but
You
we
got your
got
steps in though.
we got our steps in, and we got our first. I mean, the valuable thing was the liquidity inside of this piece of technology we built. It was real people using it, and it was it would be, we would pass out 1,000 flyers on a weekend, and we would get maybe 50 to 100 people sign up, and, that was real feedback from real people, and then they would tell us everywhere it sucked, and then we would fix all of those things that sucked about the app, and then we would do that again, and over and over and over again, and then we got to a point where it was pretty good. It worked for hiring a lawn mowing service, and it was like we didn't have time to focus on a robust marketing strategy. We just needed people to use it. So passing out door hangers was the quickest way to do that at that stage of the game. And then after
Hmm.
we got a little bit of momentum in one city, Nashville, we were then able to focus on, okay, how are we going to find where people hang out online and how do we find out where people are looking for a lawn mowing service, and how does GreenPal be where they're looking, and we built a strategy around that. But a lot at the time, we just need people to use it today, and door and flyers and door hangers was the way to get there.
I love that you're like, "You're not getting your cup of coffee until I see you download the app and use
Literally,
it."
literally, yeah, yeah. Coffee on me to just try my app. I literally that was a sign that said that, and I did that.
That's so funny.
Did that many days, and that was a good way to get usability tests and people to try it out.
Yeah, that just shows the passion and the grind behind it, that it's not gonna just come to your door, on day 1, that it's like it's the consistency piece of, like, you have to work at it. People aren't just gonna fall into your lap, you
Oh,
know?
totally. If
Oh
you
my
build
gosh.
it, they will not come.
They will not come until you grind for a long time and then slowly build it. Okay, so there's 2 parts of this business. There's getting the people to use the app, but then there's this whole other side of getting the landscapers to join the app. Then those seem like 2 completely different strategies.
Yeah,
So
it's
what is that second piece like?
yeah, it really is to customers. You've got a value proposition for consumers that need their lawn mowed, and then you have a whole nother kind of argument, if you will, a sales argument to lawn care professionals why they should use it, why they should care about offering their services on the platform. And what we learned was if we can drive incremental business to lawn care services in a consistent way and fill their routes up, that they are gonna be the easier part of the equation, that if it that but if you don't, then they go away, and then if they go away, then you don't have anything. So you have a very short window of opportunity where you recruit the suppliers, the lawn care services onto the network, and then now you gotta go hustle up the
Right, that's a fine balance right
yeah,
there.
it really is, and, I learned a lot from, believe it or not, Tinder. Tinder was getting started in those early days, and they were blogging about how they were jump starting the network and ways that they did that because a dating app works the same as Airbnb or Uber or as GreenPal. It's buyers and sellers, and so we learned from them. Some things that they did was they would throw like college parties, and to get into the party you had to download the app, and things like that is how they got kind of guerrilla marketed their way through these little micro networks throughout the country. GreenPal had to build itself in a similar way where we had to attract on like a vision the lawn care professionals, and then we had to hustle up the other side of the market. And now, fast forward, 10 years later, we have a waiting list in most cities for suppliers, for lawn care services. And it's still it's harder to get the demand side, the part of the equation that's taking out their wallet, that's buying something is usually the harder
Right.
is usually the harder part of the equation to solve for. And we have around 300,000 of them. We want to do a million, and so that's still what we're grinding on.
That's awesome. So growing businesses like this requires a really strong mindset. So I would love if you could share like what does your daily routine look like? How do you make sure that you're staying in like a good headspace to run a company of this size and to grow it? Like what is your day to day or some of the routines that you do to make sure that you're living optimally so that you can, have that be shown in what you're doing for your business?
Yeah, you mentioned a good word there, routines, and I think it's important to have some consistent routines and systems in your day and in your week. And the book Atomic Habits is a great book about this, and
Great
it's
book.
a great book. And he says, don't it's like the goals, like we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall back to the level of our habits. And you can change the word habits for routines or systems. And so you have to lay out what the routines look like on a daily basis. And so that could be, you are checking the number of pieces of content you're putting out, or you're checking the number of signups you had that day, or you're checking the number of people who quit using it, the number of the tractors you have. It's whatever it is, like the numbers that really matter in the business. What are the things that are going to move those numbers up and down? What are the inputs that are going to do that? That's what your routines need to be built around. And That's how it was for me 10 years ago, and that's still how it is for me today. Every day there's almost like a checklist and a set of routines of things I'm going through, and it's like, okay, and it really literally can start from like what is our burn, what is the bank balance, what does sales look like, what does signups look like, what does traffic look like, and then all of the people that are responsible for those, what are they checking in, what are they getting done, and what or not, and why are they not? And so it's just like a set of routines every day where you're going through all of these things that matter in the business, and that changes and evolves over time as you build out your team. But it's important to have that system and have those routines that you're going through on a daily basis for things that
Yeah.
actually matter.
Actually matter, right? And that consistency piece is so key where it could you think
Totally.
you do it 10 times and you're like, "Oh, this doesn't seem to be working." Well, you need to do it 100 times
Yeah,
before you
exactly.
start seeing the traction there. So
Exactly.
that's great on like a business standpoint. I'm also curious now on like a personal standpoint. Are there things that you do on the regular, like read business books every morning, cold plunge? Like, are there things that you're doing to keep yourself in like for wellness purposes to
Yeah,
stay strong?
physical fitness is important to me. It was something that got away from me in really in my journey of building GreenPal. Probably year 4 or 5, just grinding it out, living at the office almost. My physical fitness uh decayed, and I woke up one day, felt terrible. I was probably 20, 30 pounds overweight, and I realized that in order to run this marathon of business, I literally probably need to be able to run a marathon in real life. And so my co-founder and I signed up for a marathon, and so we started training for the marathon while building the business, and whipped our butts back into shape. And so that I think your physical fitness and your personal kind of diet habits is what gives you the stamina to see it through, because you're going to need a lot of actual energy to get through some of the ups and downs of building a company, especially getting it going from scratch. So that's important to me, and it's something that I don't ever want to let get away from me again. Um, I think I think when you're building a business, you should be doing 3 things at one time, at all times. You should be working in the business, a lot of the things I just mentioned, making sure the trains are running on time, and then working on the business. What are the systems, processes that you need to be working on to make it grow and run smoother? And then the third thing is you should be working on yourself. Whether you realize it or not, you're a bottleneck at some point in your business. The business usually grows to the founder's capabilities, and you have to like release that bottleneck and learn the sets of things you need to be learning. So you have to always be working on yourself, and you have to set aside time for that. And for me, that's a Sunday thing. I always try to like set aside 4 or 5 hours every Sunday to read, or at least an audio book, or a YouTube series of some kind. I'm doing a lot of stuff around AI right now, trying to get up to speed on a lot of AI stuff. So you have to set aside time for that, because if not, it's going to come at the cost of your business's growth. Your business is going to grow only to your potential.
That's great advice. It all works together,
Yeah,
right?
so it's interconnected.
Yeah. So, all right, we're running out of time, but before we wrap up, I would love to leave listeners with like, what is the one thing that you would tell business owners that they could do today to either improve their life or their business? Is there one thing that you think they could do?
Um, yeah, there's a lot of single things you can do. And I'll share a couple that come from smarter people than me. One is Sam Walton was famous for walking his own stores. And so even when Walmart had like 2,000 stores, Sam Walton would still walk the floor of the store and would like notice stuff and point out stuff. Jeff Bezos does this too. Like when he was running Amazon, he was notorious for like Sunday morning at 5 a.m. phone calls to key people on the team, because that was the only time during the week he had time to shop on Amazon, and he was secret shopping. So you have to like walk the store. You have to sign up for your own product. You have to do business with yourself in like a almost like a secret shopper way, and experience what the customer experiences. And that single thing And like I mean, I used GreenPal the other day for an investment property that I had, and it was the first time I had actually used the app in probably 3 or 6 months, and there was a half dozen things I found that needed to be polished, needed to be fixed, copy that needed to be improved, and so it's like, walk the store, Sam Walton. And then the other one that I like, a single thing is the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Wilkins, I can't remember his last name, but he's a Navy SEAL that wrote this book called Extreme Ownership. And, like, that book is really good, and, like, that book is about, like, one thing, and it's about the level of comfort in knowing that everything is your fault. And
Yes.
and that's what running a business is like. It is extreme ownership. It is every single thing at every level is your fault as the founder. And if you
Yes.
make the decision to accept that, it's almost liberating in a way, and it almost like empowers you to do things about problems and to accept problems and make things better. And so it's like everything is your fault as the founder, and just and let that empower you in a way.
Yeah, I started talking recently about radical accountability. And it's just like if you take full ownership of every aspect of it, then you're
Yeah,
the only one to blame at the end of the day. And like you can grow so much as a person if you just start taking radical accountability for every single aspect of your life. You can't
absolutely.
blame everybody for
Weird thing,
any
a
part of
weird
it.
thing, but it's empowering in a weird way. Yeah, totally.
Right, totally. Oh my gosh, Brian, this has been so fun. Feel like there's like so many good like tips and tricks, and just hearing your story is inspiring, and it's been really cool just talking to you and picking your brain for the last 30 minutes. So I really appreciate you. I know you're in Thailand right now, so thanks for taking the time out of your day to talk to us.
Awesome, Sarah. Well, thanks for having me on your show. I enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for listening to Nothing Small About Business. Make sure you follow the show so you don't miss the value in upcoming episodes. Share this with someone who's growing, and connect on socials for more.